Still the breakfast and Plus TV Africa. Many thanks for staying with us. We head strictly to the next conversation. We're looking at electoral litigations. Now, since the return of democratic governance in 1999, election season has always witnessed a pre-post-poll dispute that often end at the Supreme Court. With the 2023 general elections around the corner, the concerns have actually heightened. Recall that the Supreme Court dealt with 388 political appeals and 65 motions during the 2019 general elections. Well, in the same vein of electoral litigations, human rights lawyer Femi Falana has urged Nigerian courts to stop imposing politicians on Nigerians, arguing that the involvement of courts in the electoral process has not been favorable to the country's democracy. According to Falana, the involvement has been forced by the neglect of duties by the INEC and the arbitrariness and impunity of some of the members of the executive, and also corrupt activities of political parties. He talked about the increasing involvement of courts in the electoral process, which cannot be blamed solely on judges. INEC has contributed to tribunalization of democracy by abdicating its constitutional duties. For instance, Senator Godswill Akpabio and Ahmed Lawan were aspirant in the presidential primaries of the APC. It's common knowledge that Senator Akpabio later stepped down for Tinubu, while Senator Lawan contested and lost the election. Surprisingly, both senators returned to their respective senatorial zones to displace the candidates that were elected in valid primaries conducted in Akwa Ibom State and Yobe State. Of course, they say that's out of sheer impunity, and their names were substituted to INEC by the leadership of the APC. Curiously, INEC claimed that it could not reject the illegal nomination and advise aggrieved candidates who were illegally approved or who legally approached the court for redress. So at this juncture, he said, I'm being compelled to draw the attention of INEC to the provision of the Electoral Act of 2022 and the Constitution that empower INEC to reject the names of candidates who did not emerge from valid primaries. We have our guest joining us, Barrister Justice Uhuegbu, who is a human rights lawyer and vice presidential candidate 2019 presidential elections. He's our guest this morning. Barrister Justice, it's good to have you join us. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning. It is my pleasure.
Would also be joined by Barrister Festus Ugochi. I hope I got that correctly. He's also a legal practitioner. Barrister Festus, thank you for joining us. All right, Festus has not joined us, but Barrister Justice, let's talk about this now. If you look at the requirement of the constitutional requirement and what the Supreme Court is expected to, or her duties and what is expected of the Supreme Court, it's required that under Section 223, subsection 2EI, you want to continue to, for thereabout, they have a right to sit on appeals relating to presidential and governorship elections. So don't you think that the Constitution itself sets up our democracy for litigations?
Well, I don't see it that way. The only thing there is that the judiciary, like we always say, that it seems to be the last hope of the government. When there are issues, especially within the executive circle or the legislative circle, it is only judiciary that will always worry to really actually interpret the law as it is and try to stabilize the situation. And that is why the Constitution in its wisdom has to come in. Because first of all, you should bear in mind that there must definitely be issues, especially when elections are conducted. It's not only in Nigeria that after election has been conducted that people will go to court to seek redress or whatever. And if the court is not there to address some of these issues, definitely we know that Nigeria or the country will be going to a chaos situation and all the rest. So that is why that provision was made in the first place. But as far as I'm concerned, it is neither here nor there. But for me, what I see there is that just that the executive, the recklessness of the executive and impunity is what is causing some of the problems we are experiencing today in our country.
All right. Justice, let's look at what your learned colleague, senior advocate of Nigeria, is saying, that the involvement of courts in the electoral process has not been favorable to the country's democracy. Do you agree with that? And why?
Well, I have to agree with that to an extent. And for me, I think that is why, in the wisdom of the new electoral law, that now try to make sure that every pre-election matter, as it is today, is being concluded before election. Because you and I know that period to this time, somebody will be in the office, for example, as a governor, and after about 3 years or getting to 4 years, the court will make a pronouncement that the person is no longer the governor, or is not legally the governor. Then the question now becomes, what of the 3 years, 2 years, or nearly 4 years that the person has been there as a governor, who has taken all the benefits, paid himself salaries, and all the rest? What happened? Those people are not meant to refund all those money and all the rest, even in the legislative side of it. So I think that actually what is happening is because of also this thing I'm talking about, the impunity of the executive, and the again, within the political circle, within the political parties itself, there is no internal democracy, and that is why we're getting some of these problems we're seeing today.
All right, so I'd like you to share your thoughts on this. We already might just be having a pre-election issue ahead of 2023 because for governorship race, there seemed to be uncertainty over the fate of the PDP and the APC candidates in 4 states. So litigation would continue to trail the primaries of the 2 leading parties in the state. How do we, put a stop to all of this? Do you think that the Electoral Act that we have, can help stop it in any way? Because it feels like if it continues, it probably might get to the Supreme Court.
No, we are actually advancing as far as I'm concerned, especially with the introduction of the new electoral act and all. We're actually advancing. But remember, you see, we are in a country where, because today in Nigeria, the only viable business, because I call it business, I don't see it as service. The only viable business today in Nigeria is politics. And that is why everybody wants to do everything possible to make sure he or she enters into power, by act or by omission, by hook or by crook. And that is why you're seeing some of these things today, you're seeing in Nigeria. But if we can actually be proactive, and if the court can actually be proactive to make sure that all these pre-election matters are settled before the election proper, I think it will go a long way to save this country. But let us also understand the fact that when 2 people are fighting, definitely somebody must be there who will come, who will weld in to say, no, look at the way it should go, and look at the way it should go. And that is what the court is doing. And if you recall, in the wisdom of the constitution itself, and in the wisdom of the theory of separation of power and the rule of law, that is why the judiciary is even there. So that when there is conflict, either within the executive, either within the judiciary, or by individuals or people, it is only the judiciary that will always come in to make sure there is sanity and certainty in the process.
Why are we having this, so-called imposition of candidates on the country, on Nigerians, as the senior advocate of Nigeria has said? He also talked about, the usurping of the powers of INEC, the usurping of the powers of the electorate in organizing and supervising elections, that the courts have taken over the mandate of INEC and the mandate of the electorate. And the case in point could be probably the, the Anambra or Imo State situation, where the current governor is widely described by people who do not agree with his ascension, to power as a Supreme Court governor. This is what Femi Falana said in the paper. He read in part, quote, "The courts have been involved in the appointment of party officers and endorsement of candidates sponsored by political parties to contest elections." He says a lot, I wouldn't want to go into all that. So it's both about action and inaction, failure to do the right thing, in terms of policing or midwifing or monitoring and, you know, holding these politicians to account, and also you know, some questionable decisions or rulings. So how did we get here? What is the cause of all this as far as judiciary is concerned? Is it from the wrong appointment of the judges? You know, recently the Chief Justice of Nigeria swore in the electoral tribunals. So is it about the appointment? Is it the character of the lawyers, the judges, you know, in concerned? And what is the solution? Is it the fault of politicians who are influence peddling? And what's the solution?
Well, first of all, let me say this and say it's clear for us to understand. As far as I'm concerned, our major problem started with INEC. Because first of all, I do not see INEC as even an independent body. INEC is still being influenced by perspective till today. And that is why all the problems we are having in our electoral process is still there till as I talk to you. Now, why? Because of this mantra of he who pays the piper dictates the tune, who appoints the INEC chairman, is it not Mr. President, and all the rest. So they will always try to play their bill. We are in a country where institutions, in fact, we have not institutionalized the system. Because if we have institutionalized the system, whoever that appoints you or that gives the person the power to appoint you becomes a material. Because you must live above board as the INEC chairman. Today, the question you should be asking yourself is the INEC chairman, the INEC, the rank officers and all that, are they living above board or not? We are in a situation where election will still be going on, and somebody will go on radio and announce himself winner, and you see it will stand because of the impunity of the executive. It has happened everywhere. It happened in Imo State. It happened everywhere. Now, when you come into the issue of judiciary, you see, the truth is this. Remember that these same judicial members, these same adjudicators, these same judges are also products of the society. So that is why we say when the sick is sick, when the head is sick, the whole body will be sick. So you now begin to ask yourself, we now should have, as I said, do we still have incorruptible judges today in our system? I could remember when I was growing up in secondary school, there was a novel we read that time in literature titled The Incorruptible Judge. Do we still have such people today? Do we still have judges that live above board? And let me tell you the truth, not until we look for a way to amend some of these our laws and avoid some of these things, we will continue having the same problem. Where the situation is that the president appoints the CJN, the governors appoint the judges of the various states and all the rest. What do you expect? What do you expect? So it becomes an issue of impunity. Most of them go in there. Yes, we are all lawyers. But the issue is this. Character is a factor. Most of them go in there. They do the bid of whoever that appointed them or whoever that they feel they put them there. At times, some of these things are even lobbied. So that is the situation we have today. Unfortunately, you made reference to Imo State governorship election and the present governor today. In the whole wide world, even a carpenter on the street fought the judiciary on that judgment. But what do we do? Because the Supreme Court has made pronouncement. Because you and I know that after the Supreme Court, the only place you can appeal to is God. But one thing we should understand is this: whatever we do in life, at the end of the day, one way or the other, God is there to judge it his own way. And you must get the repercussion and the reward of anything you do in life, whether you like it or not.
Well, I'd like to ask, as we coast the conversation down now, do you think that, we will ever get out of a situation where we not have litigations, electoral litigation? Because it's believed that, the court is the last resort for dissatisfaction. And do the people not have a right to seek a redress in a case where they think that, the laws have not been respected, whether at the party level or what have you, or maybe at the process of conducting the elections? The people have the right to seek a redress or seek redress in case of infraction?
First of all, we should ask ourselves a question. What is the meaning of democracy? We say that democracy is the government of the people by the people. In a simple term, it is the government of the majority. But you and I know that today in Nigeria, it is not so. It is not the government of few individuals, few cabals, few people that feel they control power, people that feel that they own the whole world. We had somebody in this country who was quoted and seen to have said that he is richer than the state, and nothing happened. People were clapping. That is the level of impunity that is existing in this country. Let me tell you the truth. Except we tell ourselves the truth. Julius Nyerere of Tanzania once said something. He said, until we go back to the truth, we must persist and continue in error. And that is exactly what is happening to us. We don't want to tell ourselves the truth. And in the case of Parker versus Parker, Lord Dennis said something. He said that until we start doing what we have not done before, we will remain standstill while the rest of the world moves on. Nigeria is standstill today, and other worlds are moving on. What do we do, like you asked the question? It's a very simple thing. The political parties, do they on themselves want internal democracy? Because if you say about power belongs to the people, people should be able to elect the person that will represent them. Let me tell you the truth. If there is free and fair election by INEC, the problem is that people don't even trust the INEC. People don't even trust the system. The institutions have failed. If there is free and fair election, if I contest an election and I know that I lost that election in a free and fair manner, I don't need to go to court. But people go to court because they feel that they have been robbed. And you see it broad daylight robbery. What do you expect? The next thing you do...
So my question is, do they have the right? Do the people have the right to, contest an infraction, or whether they think that, they have been robbed, they have been treated not fairly, especially at the party level, or, in the process of conducting the elections? Do these politicians have a right to, resort to the court?
Definitely, because you can't take the laws into your hands. You can't go by jungle justice, because the judiciary is there to always look at issues where somebody feels he has been badly treated. The only place for you to go is to go to court and seek for redress. You can't go and take arms. You can't go and fight. You can't go and join issues with people so that you become a banana republic. It is only the court. But my problem here is this. The judiciary and the court should be very, very proactive to know that they are the last hope of the common man. But the question you ask yourself is that today, is judiciary still the last hope of the common man, or has he become the highest bidder?
All right,
that is the problem.
Yeah, Justice, quickly, we're out of time. INEC has said it currently has over 600 litigations before the court, 600 cases. One agency that's meant to conduct an election, which you've just had to move forward a little bit. 600 cases. And they've advocated for the establishment of what we call an election offenses commission, which would take the burden of election litigation away from INEC so they can focus on just organizing elections. Do you agree with such a move, that this will help this particular situation?
It is neither here nor there. For me, it's an aberration. If I know INEC could be proactive and tell themselves the truth, most of these things will stop. The problem itself is that INEC itself is...
Oh, well.
All right.
We have to go now, Justice
Uhuegbu, unfortunately.
Well, that's the size of a conversation. We hope that we'll continue this as we inch closer to 2023. Thank you so much for being part of the show. If you missed out on any part of it, it will be fine to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're at PlusTvAfrica, and the second is PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. My name is Messi Bopo. Have a fantastic morning.
And my name is Kofi Bartels. We're here tomorrow. Good morning.